Buddy, welcome to Chem 1211. I'm your host, Dr. White, and I am an organic chemist, and I like chemistry a lot, have all my life. And today's class is the first one we'll be having on Zoom. Be sure to try and log in early, a couple minutes early on Zoom, which I see just about everybody has. One thing, when you ask a question, or do something, it may take me a second or two to open up chat. All right, let's go through a couple things. First of all, this semester, even if I were doing face-to-face lecture, which I have for a number of years, I've taught at COD, you'll learn a lot about me personally. And the first thing you'll learn about me is my hearing. Now, if we were in a classroom setting, you'd see I have my hearing aids on because I have big speakers here that I right up above my monitor that I can turn up the sound. I can hear pretty good without my hearing aids, which I don't like to wear if I don't have to. Now, what that means is once in a while, when you ask a question, if you ask it and I hear it on your speakers, I may ask you to repeat it once or twice because still my hearing isn't that bad, it isn't that good. And that's one thing I wanted to tell about you. Now, the next thing I want to talk about me personally and about this class is probably one of the most important things I'll teach you this morning. So please listen carefully. In my class, in my world, there's no such thing as a dumb question. I'll say that again because it's so important. In my class, in my world, anywhere around me, there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you don't know something, if you have a question, ask. I'll do my best to answer it. If I can't answer it now, I'll get back to you later with an answer. Now, sometimes I might answer your question. You may still not get it. If I do it once or twice, I may ask you to see me after class or see me during my office hour because I have to move on. But there's no such thing as a dumb question. I practice that religiously, no exception. And it took me until my third year in grad school when I was giving a talk in my research group that I belonged to, not mine, Dr. Rush's was my research advisor. And I was talking about my research, and one of the participants in that group, Dr. Palavin, who's a postdoctoral fellow in our group, that's someone with a PhD who works for another professor till he get a real job. I was a postdoctoral fellow long ago at UIC. I was talking and Dr. Palavin asked, could you go through, explain this reaction? And it's a reaction that we teach undergrad chem majors. Here's a guy with a PhD asking me. So I explained it. And afterward, I went up to him and said, Larry, weren't you embarrassed asking that question that undergrads know the answer to? And I said, why should I be embarrassed about asking a question? I didn't know it. Now I do. Aren't we here to learn? And that's when I finally realized you should never be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. That was my wording that I came up with. By the way, I have my lecture notes right here. Let's see. Please log in about 2 or 3 minutes early so you'll be on time. If we were in a classroom setting, I start at, in this case, 10 o'clock like I did today. All right, another thing, we have what's known as a double section. A double section is a way a COD saves money and puts two sections together. In chemistry, when we're in COD face-to-face, we're only allowed, because of safety reasons, 24 students per section, because that's how many our labs will safely allow. But for lecture, they double us up, and they also pay us less because we're not lecturing twice the time. So this is a double section. Those of you in section 1, VCM 01, you'll meet like a section, the other section, on Monday and Wednesday for lecture, but we'll have lab on Thursday. You will, and that lab starts at 9. Those of you in VCM 02, You'll meet also on Monday and Wednesday for lecture, but your lab, which will start also at 9, is on Friday. Now, one of the things I like to do is, first of all, I figured out, I should tell you, I'm a computer power user. I have been for, I hate to say this, many decades. One company, by the way, I spent a good part of my adult life working in the chemical industry, where after the first 2 years, I became a senior manager in research and development at a couple international chemical companies. And one of them I worked at back in a long time ago, CHEMI, now known as Nobel. I was the first one outside of accounting in the whole company worldwide to get a personal computer when they first came out. Well, now you know I have gray hair. If I had the other camera, well, you can sort of see it or what's left of it. But I've been using a computer. By 83, I knew how to use spreadsheets and other things. Wow. So please log in early. Another thing I should mention, and it happened once last semester in the 12-11 class I taught, I lost internet service and no class because I wasn't there. And it happened for almost a half a day. I lost it, which is very rare. And also what happened last semester was I had a problem with a contact at one of my splitters I have in my house. I have two. I didn't realize it was going bad or loosening up. I haven't touched it in years. And I work with my cable company to fix that. So if I lose while we're talking internet service, check back for about up to 10 minutes. After 10 minutes or so, we'll make it up on another day. And if I don't log in, you can't log in the morning. That's mainly because I lost internet service, which is rare. All right. One of the things I do is I use a whiteboard, which I actually is a computer tablet. And one of the problems with Zoom is sometimes it'll tell me I've switched and I haven't. So I've come up with the thumbs up people. Everybody see a whiteboard and see me writing on there this number? Thank you. This is called Avogadro's number. Do not write it down. But over the next hour or so, I'm going to try and get the Guinness Book of World Record by pointing to and saying Avogadro's number 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. This is scientific notation. Either today or Wednesday, I'll teach you about what is scientific notation. All right. Sometimes when I switch back and forth, Zoom tells me you've switched, and the students, no, you haven't switched. So that's where I came up with the thumbs up. Now, one of the nice things about COD, and by the way, I teach this class at COD, College of DuPage, and I also teach organic chemistry at Elgin Community College. And each one has a different computer system. COD, Blackboard, ECC, Elgin Community College, D2L, Desire to Learn. So if I say in here D2L, I just made a mistake and forgot which school I was at, or just that happens. All right. I'm assuming all of you are familiar with Blackboard. You should be able to log on to it. And if you can't, let me know or ask the computer help desk here at COD. By the way, the computer help group here at COD is helpful. They do help me. They help students. If you look at Blackboard, does everybody see my Blackboard on there? Thumbs up, people. Thank you. And I'm going to once in a while for chat. Okay. Now, mine's a little different than yours, or maybe not. Over here, notice I have Zoom meeting information. It's also in the syllabus. I have announcements. You should be checking your email daily. Since we're in an online course, I will be sending out emails. Please check it daily. You'll see course information. I'll talk more about that. Same thing with assignments. And you'll see a selection called syllabus. If you double click on that, you'll see I have, in this case, I'm in the 001 course. I have both. And those of you who are in section 2, yours looks identical, other than it says VCM02, same thing here. And you'll see I have your course syllabus both as a Word document and a PDF. So if you don't have Microsoft Word or access to it, even though you can open it up through Google Doc, if you have either a Chromebook or just log on, get a Google email. I have 2 of them. One for personal and one for my work. Besides teaching, I do chemical consulting. You'll see the student syllabus and what I call the signature sheet. And if you click on that, it'll open it up. I'm going to open it up from my computer. And hopefully everybody sees the syllabus on there. And for those of you who are in section 2, yours says section 2. Couple important things. We meet on Monday and Wednesday from 10 to 10:50. I'll talk more about lectures in a little while. For those of you in section 1, we have a lab from 9 to 11:50. For those of you who are on section 2, it's Friday. All right. Here's our Zoom meeting information, which is also you can find on the front of the login for Blackboard. And this one, COD and ECC have different types of accounts. For this one, you have to use the password. Please don't give that away to anybody else. Last April, when we all of a sudden had to switch to Zoom, and I didn't password, yes, I got Zoom bombed, but I got rid of those people real quick. And after that, I use a password. Now, even though COD doesn't require me to, because I'm adjunct, majority of the faculty are adjunct, meaning part-time. They do that to keep money down. I have office hours, and those are Monday and Wednesday night from 6 until 7:15 at this Zoom address. Now, the password is right here, but for ECC, which is what I'm using their account for my office hours, the password is embedded in this login. And if you want, you can also call in. I had a student, it was the last semester, worked in an ambulance as an EMT. Actually, it was on a break and came to my office hour from inside his ambulance. That was interesting. All right. Now, if you look up here, you'll see somewhere around here I have office phone. It's really a voicemail box, and I can't remember what year I last checked it. Was it 6 or 7 years ago? Don't do that. Email me. I check my email twice a day, every day, including Saturday and Sunday. Now I'm an early riser, so this morning my first check was about, I'd say about 6 a.m. And I'll try and check it later this afternoon or evening, but I always try and check it at least twice a day. If you really need an emergency, contact the department secretary. You can find that. Try the dean's office. They can get to me. But email is the best way. Now, there's a bunch of stuff I'm required to put in there, not only me, but all faculty. So I'm going to scroll through this. You can go back and look at it at your leisure, not that you have to. All right, I'm making the textbook optional. Dr. White just saved you a whole bundle of money. Thank you. You're welcome. Uh, Over the years that I've been teaching, I have found students don't need the textbook. A number of years ago, I was teaching 1212, which is organic, which is the next step for those of you who are taking, I'll have to take organic too. And I asked about halfway through the semester, and I also did this a while ago in a Chem 1211 class, how many of you are reading the book? And nobody raised their hand. At first, I was upset. Why aren't you reading the book? Until I looked at the test scores, and about 75% of the class was earning A's. Important thing, earning A's. And since I don't get any kickbacks from the publisher of those books, hey, if you're doing well and learning chemistry or organic chemistry in my class, don't buy the book. Also, I'll talk more about it. I provide problems sets for each chapter that I wrote personally and the answers. And that's the reason why you don't need to buy the book. Plus, all my lectures are on Blackboard in the lecture course information file. So anything you see put on the screen as the slides are there. By the way, in industry, I did more PowerPoint presentations than I could remember. I mean, lots of them. But for this class, I found when I started teaching again a while ago, Word works much better. Yes, I can do a PowerPoint and ooh, look at all the fancy stuff, but not really. And also, I don't need to do the publisher's PowerPoint because Dr. White knows chemistry. Everybody see textbook on their screen? Thumbs up, people. Thank you. Now, you will need to buy a license for LabZ, which is the virtual lab we'll be using this semester. Last summer when I taught, just last summer, 1211 online, the school tried another one called Labster, which was a horrible experience. I had trouble with those labs. And I have a PhD in organic chemistry. I shouldn't have had any problems. And we're now using Labster. And you can buy a license through the bookstore. It's inexpensive. Actually, you're saving money because if we were in COD face to face, I think the lab book costs about $50. The license costs about $30. So there you're saving another $20, which is a good thing. Now, one thing I found out recently, first of all, if you have a Chromebook, you need to go to Google Play Store and use the Labster app that way. Now, I have one student who has a Chromebook that won't work, and I tried working with Labster, not Labster, Beyond Lab Z people, and it's just not compatible. The library, supposedly, I was told this morning, has some computers they can loan out to students. If you have a problem, if you have a Chromebook and it won't load the apps, check with the library. They run out, we'll work out something. You don't need to do it this week, but I'd recommend by Monday or Tuesday next week, you have purchased a license for Beyond Lab Z, and you also have loaded it up on your computer. It's pretty simple. I've done it. I had no problem with it. And Heather at Beyond Lab Z, who I've been working with, she's been very helpful for anything. In fact, I found a bug in one of their labs and they corrected it when I let them know about it. And so that's Lab Z. You'll need a calculator and a webcam. In terms of calculators, an inexpensive one is the TI-30XIIX. If you have a more powerful one, you can. Ta-da! And I'll show you in lab if you don't know how to use this for scientific calculations. I'll teach you how to do this. By the way, if you have a more fancier calculator, that's okay. But these are simple to use. They're solar powered, so you don't have to worry about the battery running out. And this one I've had, I don't know, 8, 10 years. And in class, if we were taking tests, I'd bring this and I have another one for students to use. Since we're not going to be in class, well, I won't bring it, but I'll still teach you how to use it. All right, this is a VCM, not an internet course. Therefore, I do take attendance. How do I do that? Well, Zoom allows me to do a report. That's why it's important to use your real name so I know you showed up. And I have a thing, if you miss more than 6 lectures, which is like disappearing for 3 weeks, I reserve the right to assign you an F. I don't drop you, I just give you that. Please come in. If you have a problem, something comes up, let me know about it by email, and I'll give you an excused absence. I've had students, especially with all the, how should I say, life difficulties with COVID-19, who have had problems. Some of them work at pharmacies or in hospitals or in nursing homes. And when other of their workers have symptoms or been exposed to the virus, they've had to pick up extra time to help out and couldn't make it. And that I understand. All right, now, student behavior. One of the things I put in new for this, first of all, here's a link to the Code of Academic Conduct for COD. You should follow that. And some important things now that we're all online is academic dishonesty includes using other things that are not yours that you got from the internet, posting any of this material on the internet, like on Coursera or Chegg. I don't know if that's the right way of pronouncing it, without my consent, and you don't have it. And knowingly assisting others in dishonest use of course materials, such as working together on a test or anything like that. That's unacceptable, and it's not allowed. Also, don't plagiarize, and I'll let you read this on your own. Now, I have here, if we're in the classroom, about if you do something to disrupt the class, and here I can just get rid of you, drop you from Zoom, but if you do disrupt things, I'll talk to you in private, send you an email, a letter, and I also copy the Dean of Students and my Dean, the Dean of Math and Science. And if it's totally unacceptable, I'll do the same thing and not drop you, have you not come back to the class. That's only happened once in all the years I've been teaching at COD, and the student has serious psychological problems. You shouldn't be cheating. If you do, you'll get an F. And again, I'll let the same people, the Dean of Students and Dean of Math and Science, know about it. All right, this is very important. Do not raise your hand, see me in private, or come to my office hours or email me. If you are a special needs student, I have always and always will support the work by the Center of Access and Accommodations to meet the needs of any special needs students in my class, also sometimes in the past known as a blue card student. I've had a number of them. They've done well in my class. Please let me know by email. That's the new policy. You get an email from them, forward it to me. I already know we have 2 in this class, but let's do this in private. If you are a special needs student, I will help you in any way I can to meet those special needs students' needs in my class. All right, important thing. How do you get a good grade in this class? Well, now I think I woke everybody up, and that is we're going to have 4 tests. Here are the tentative dates. If something happens, or as it happened last semester, I felt I could move 1 test a week later because the students could use some more practice and time practicing the material on that test. I did, but generally I stick to the schedule. And there'll be a final exam, cumulative or comprehensive, on this date. since we're a VCM, we do follow, and I do follow, and all other instructors who teach VCM, the COD finals week schedule. That will be on Monday at 10 a.m. Over the semester, I think I only give one, usually I give only one extra credit, and make up policy. If you have some kind of emergency, let me know about it, especially with COVID-19 going on, and I'll help you out. We'll work it through it. All right, now the important thing. How do you get a good grade in my class? Dr. White was a student and still remembers those days. All right, you're gonna have 4 tests. What I do is I take the sum of the 3 highest test scores, your final exam and labs, and I'll talk about labs and add them up together, and you get a number, which is seen right here. And you'll get a percentage. It's the sum of your 3 highest test scores, plus the final exam score, plus the lab total, plus if you do an extra credit project, which I'll have one, times 100 divided by 630. You'll get a percentage. If you're 90 and above, A, 80, 89, B, 70, 79, C, D, 60, 69, less than 60, 59 or less, F. And I follow this way. There's no subjective. Did you get the points or not? Now, because of the way I teach, and also, as I said, I don't want to bring religion into the class, but I will. Dr. White's been blessed. Thank you. I somehow attract very good students. Last semester and other semesters, even when we're in a classroom, I usually see, and I also expect, about 70 to 85% of the class, sometimes even higher, earn. The important thing is earn A's. My students do well. If you follow, and I'll talk to you about it this morning, what do you have to do to succeed in this class? Because remember I told you a little while ago, you'll learn a lot about me this semester. Here's one thing. Dr. White is a very selfish person in one way. I like to have things happen around me that make me happy. And one of the things that make me very happy is to see students succeed and get a good grade. My fervent wish is to have a class where everybody earns, keyword is earns, an A. And a couple summers ago, and also fall at COD in the classroom, and also last semester we did pretty good too, online. I had class, in one case I had 24 students, and I had 22 A's and 2 B's. And at first when I saw that, I was, why didn't they get A's too? Until I realized, Dr. White, wake up. Those 2 students who got a B, if I hadn't helped them out, would have flunked. So for them to get B's was quite an accomplishment instead of flunking. And so I was very happy. So just relaxed, that % breakdown, students do very well in my class. All right, couple things. Withdrawal, that's per COD. I have no control over that. I should tell you, I rarely have students drop or withdraw. And because the only reasons I have a couple who've gotten pregnant and dropped, and a couple who got transferred to jobs outside of Illinois and they had to drop. I rarely, for other reasons, have students drop, which I guess is a good thing. Incomplete, if there's some extreme emergency, I'll help you get an incomplete. You need to do that. All right. Here's a tentative course outline per each week. This is the beginning of the week. And here are the chapters we'll cover. And notice I have tests. Notice on each test, if you look at the dates, are on a Wednesday. That gives me enough time to grade the test and have it the following Monday to hand back to you. And I'll explain later in the semester how I can hand back tests you take online. I figured out a way to do that. And each Monday, I do a review. Students have told me that helps them, and I try and do things that help students. And here's spring break. If I made a mistake on dating here, let me know. I don't think I did, but I sometimes do. The week before finals week, I'll do on Monday and Wednesday, and also in the lab, a complete semester review. That's why students do well in my final. So, because I actually help you review the material for the final. All right, for those who came in late, this is a double section. Ooh, magic trick. By the way, I should warn you, I found out in front of a webcam, Dr. White can sometimes be a wild and crazy guy. I just did a generation gap that comes from Saturday Night Live back, I think that was in 73 or 74 when that was done with Dan Aykroyd. And I can't remember who was the other guy, who was the other second wild and crazy guy. He played the banjo and wasn't part of this. It was a guest lecture, not lecture. But anyways, I can get wild and crazy. All right, there are two lab sections, two sections. One meets on Thursday, one meets on Friday mornings. And I'm gonna go through the one. Someone just told me, Steve Martin, that was it. Thank you. And those who've even seen the early Saturday Night Live, those were the best years when they first came out. John Belushi and Samurai Taylor and Samurai Moyle. I'll leave it at that. But anyways, we'll have two lab sections. I'm going through the syllabus for the Thursday lab, but it's the same other than the date. We'll be having labs. You're gonna have 14 of them. I will count the top 13. Drop if you have a bad one. Now, important thing, we're gonna go through labs. I'm gonna show you stuff. Then you're gonna do that in lab, beyond Lab Z. I just said that second time, almost said Labster. No, we're using beyond Lab Z. And you have until the next lab section to hand it in. How are we gonna hand it in? Through the assignment area of Blackboard. You'll upload a PDF file. I have a file that explains how to make a PDF file if you don't have a scanner, but I'm going to assume all of you have cell phones even I have an older cell phone, and I have documentation which shows you where to look on the internet that teaches you how to make a PDF file from a number of different pages, and you can upload that to the assignment area. Hold on, I don't shut off my phone. I don't know who that is. I'm busy, bye. Luckily I have caller ID, I think we all do. And sometimes that happens. All right, where was I? All right, you'll upload it. The way I have it set up is, say this, if you did a lab on Thursday or Friday, you have until the next Thursday or Friday to upload it to the assignment area of Blackboard. My lab write-ups are pretty easy. Shouldn't take you more than 15, 20 minutes, if that long. But because I'm not going to ask you to write 20 pages in a lab report, that's wasting your time and my time. And you're here to learn, not the right volume of stuff. And if you're more than 2 days late, you'll get 0 points. So please hand in the labs. They're easy points to get, and they're worth about 20% of your grade. And if you don't hand in a lab, you get 0 points. So please do the labs. If we were at COD in each lab, I'd remind people here, I'll do it by email, because last semester I had a problem with some students not handing in labs, and it hurt their grade. Now, The labs will be from Beyond Lab Z, which in lab this week I'll talk about. This is for Thursday's lab, your dates. I also have a separate one on your syllabus for the section 2. Here are the different labs, and most of them are from Lab Z. And here's the PDF. I'll explain this on Thursday or Friday. A couple of them, I decided to do my own, which I've done in the past, and I'll just have a lab handout. When there's a lab handout, when you go to the assignment area of Blackboard, I will have what you need to download to write up your lab, and then you upload what you put in the answers to Blackboard, and then I can grade it. And I'll be posting grades in Blackboard and the grade book for each student. Sorry about this taking so long, but wrong slide. We're almost done. This is not exciting, but important. Now, I have, which I learned from ECC, that I've been using for many years. It's called the student agreement. And if you don't have this uploaded and signed to me in the assignment area, and it's already in there by the first test, you won't be able to take the first test or you'll get a 0. And essentially, there's 2 parts. One, and don't use this one, download the one from the assignment area. And it's also in the syllabus area too, a file, both as a Word and a PDF, that you've read the syllabus and you understand the policies, and failure to abide by those policies will result in the consequences outlined in the syllabus. In other words, if you violate something in the syllabus, I will do what I say I'll do in the syllabus. The other thing I have added since I'm online, you understand, and I'll explain this in a second, that I'm videotaping all our Zoom meetings, and I'll be posting this on YouTube. Dr. White's a YouTube star, if you don't know, not really, but, and therefore you waive your FERPA rights, that's a federal regulation concerning your name, voice, and image appearing on those videos. Because if you look at the screen, if I have it open like this to see the some of you are seen now, and you'll be seen on the video. By the way, not many people look at the video other than my students. I'm not really an internet star. And please sign it and upload it. If you can't sign, if you don't have a printer, just type in and upload it via the assignment area. And because you've uploaded it from the assignment area, only you can do that, and that will constitute a signature. Wow, we're done with the syllabus. All right. Let me ask you, how many of you, and I asked earlier, but let me ask again, how many of you, and I just realized going through the syllabus, I haven't done this, so I'll do more. This is Avogadro's number. Again, it's 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And that's Avogadro's number. Don't write it down, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. I'll do more of that next hour. But anyways, how many of you are concerned about taking chemistry and heard it's real hard? Give me a thumbs up if you're, it's not. But I'm biased. I'm an organic chemist. I'll teach you later on organic chemistry. But before I do that, and I'll teach you, you'll be able to do well if you follow what I suggest. I need to talk about our lectures. Dr. White was a student long ago, and I still remember that. Yes, I was. And after about 50 minutes or an hour a lecture, I know people's brains shut off. They just go, oh, stop working. Therefore, we're going to take a 5-minute break. If we are at COD, we take a 10-minute break. I let students go to the restroom and other things, and that gets your brain back functioning. So also last October, I hurt my back real bad, After about an hour sitting, it's almost back to normal. I have to get up and do a couple stretching exercises. So that allows me, plus if I need a refill. And we usually do that. The first break is at 10:50, about 9 more minutes, and take a 5-minute break. And then afterward, what I'll do is, since normally I do a 10-minute break, we'll end, don't tell anybody, we'll end about 5 or so minutes early. When I was a student, I hated when instructors keep on talking and talking. Class is supposed to end. How come you're still talking? It's supposed to be over. So I rarely go more than a minute over. Even then, I try not to do. All right. Another thing you should know about me, I teach by my golden rule of teaching. What's that? I don't do to my students what I didn't like done to me. And one of the things that means is you're having a test. Let's say you were having a test on Thursday. You're not, but if you were, and the day before, I was still talking about new information. That's not right. Therefore, what I always try and do, and usually I manage to do it, is a week before any test. That's when I've covered everything that will be on the test, so you have plenty of time to study and do the practice problems. Now, one of the questions is, how do you do good in chemistry? By the way, my older sister hates chemistry with a passion. In high school, if it wasn't for my father, by the way, she's 7 years older, so when she was in high school, I didn't know chemistry that well. Later on, I did, but my father helped her barely get a C. To this day, she hates it, where I'm an organic chemist and I love it, but I'll help you do well in my class. So how do you do well in a class? Well, for that, I have to teach you about bicycles. Bicycles? Yep, bicycles. Let's assume you don't know how to ride a bicycle. And being the nice person I give you the best Blu-ray ever made on how to ride a bicycle. You've got a monster TV that's high def, super high def and everything. OLED, I don't know, 20K. They don't make that yet, but let's assume you did. And you have a Blu-ray player. And for the next month or two, you watch that Blu-ray and you do slow motion, single frame, back it up. And at the end of a month or two, you know that by frame by heart. What's going to happen the first time you get on a bicycle? You're going to fall off. Even though you watched the Blu-ray, you still fall off. And how do you get better? You practice. Watching me do things in lecture is just like the Blu-ray. Oh, it doesn't look that hard. But the question is, where do you want to fall off? On the practice problems that I provide or on the test? I hope you all admit, or I hope we all want to do well on the test. So I have provided practice problems. I'll go through some of them in class. Also, if you have any questions, remember, there's no such thing as a dumb question in my class. Ask questions. Also, my office hours, which at COD I'm not required, but because I am at ECC, I also allow you to stop by. And if you can't make it then, you really need help, let me know, and we can set something up. I can set something up on Zoom. Ask questions, but do the practice problems on your own. I don't know if, now I'm going to do a generation gap for some of you. How many of you know who Michael Jordan is? I think a lot of you. And if you were around like Dr. White was when he was playing for the Chicago Bulls, and back then he was the best of the best of the best in the NBA, the top best player. And every once in a while you see either in a newspaper or in television sports report, Michael Jordan, always the first on the practice court and the last off. And they did that a number of times. And you wondered, why is this guy who's the best of the best of the best practicing all the time? He's so good. Because he did practice, and that's what made him and kept him the best of the best. and it's no different in chemistry. Now, as I've asked a couple times, how many of you are a little apprehensive of chemistry? And a number of you raised your hands or gave me a thumbs up. And the question is, why learn chemistry? Well, let's think about that. Well, oh look, my top are made of atoms and molecules. That's chemistry. I also have a backup water bottle when I run out of tea. The plastic is chemistry. By the way, the stuff inside, you don't think about it. Water is chemistry, it's a chemical. And I'm going to ask you to do a home experiment now. Take your hand, put it in your front of your mouth, and blow. Go ahead, do it. It won't hurt, I hope. Feel that? That's molecules of nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and some oxygen hitting you. If you go outside and feel the wind on your face, that's molecules of oxygen, nitrogen hitting into you. That's chemistry. So every time you inhale and breathe and exhale, everybody don't stop inhaling and exhaling, please. You will be doing chemistry. So let's see. Oh, by the way, my beard is chemistry. Everybody, touch your skin. Go ahead. Hopefully it won't hurt. That's made up of molecules, which we call, I don't teach it in this class, I teach it when I teach organic chemistry, proteins. Those are atoms and molecules. Your skin is chemistry. So let's see, why should I learn chemistry? Well, my skin, before I answer that question, let me ask a question of you and give me a thumbs up if it pertains to you. How many of you are taking Chem 1211 because someone said you had to take it to get into a program or a school, like nursing school? How many of you are doing that? Oh my God, I can see everybody doing that. So let's answer the question again. Why is taking chemistry so important, especially when water is chemistry that keeps me alive? And you too, breathing the air around us keeps us alive. Isn't it obvious why it's important to take this class? Because someone said you had to take it to get into school you want to get to, or program. And I know that, now you know I know that, so I'm not going to try and convert you into becoming chemists. But I will teach you about my world of chemistry, which is actually your world of chemistry, and it's quite exciting. But then again, I'm biased, I'm a chemist. And if I look at the clock, oh, let me go another minute or so. Ooh, it gives me time to do this again. Avogadro's number is still 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. I'm rusty. That's better. And that's a very important number. Don't write it down. I'll explain why next hour, why I'm doing that. You'll just have to wait away. And surprise ending. Now, important thing I should tell you, I told you earlier, I'm very selfish. I like to see students succeed because it makes me feel good. And that is, I'm here to help you get the best grade that you're willing to work for. I'll say that again. I will provide any help you need to help you get the best grade you're willing to work for. And how do you do that? By doing the practice problems. And we'll be doing that the whole semester. They're available on Blackboard, and they do help you get a good grade. And if you look at ratemyprofessor.com, that some of you have heard, I see someone has a question. Brianna, do you have a question? By the way, feel free to unmute your mics, or maybe you raised your hand earlier to a question of mine. I'm used to the thumbs up. I haven't, most students don't use that except when they have a question. But anyways, I'm here to help you get the best grade you're willing to work for, and I will. And with that, I have nothing to be sorry about. You should never apologize in my class unless you throw something at Dr. White. Well, you can't. I'm on the other side of this camera. But anyways, let's take a 5-minute break. I'll be back in 5 minutes and we'll continue on. All right, let's get started. For those who've ever seen the old cartoons or some movies where the school marm, one's house schoolroom, children are outside, ring the bell to get them back in, ring, 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 ring. Let's get started again. Let me just quick look at. All right. Now, a couple things I didn't mention. First of all, I think I might have mentioned, but I'll mention again, with Beyond Lab Z, one student was having trouble with Chromebook. If you have a Chromebook, you can't download the normal way. You have to go to Google Play Store. Now, if you have a certain Chromebook that's not compatible with the Beyond Lab Z apps, let me know. Also, I've been told this morning from the chem department that the library does have some computers to lend out. We'll work out something. The other thing is, I'm a YouTube star. No, not really. But I will be posting all our lectures, anything on Zoom, I'm recording, which is why I have the FERPA release in the student agreement on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And there's a link to that in the front page of Blackboard, which you can go to. If you can't find it, let me know. I think it's also in the syllabus. I teach at Elgin Community College. On Monday and Wednesdays, I have a class starting at 1. We end at 10:50, or actually 10:50, 11:50, or actually, since I'm only taking a 5-minute break, 11:45. I only have a couple minutes where I can stick after class on Monday and Wednesdays to answer questions, because I got to prepare for my 1 o'clock, also have lunch. And therefore, please be patient with me on that. But on Thursday and Fridays, after lab, I'll stick around and I also have my office hours. Because of the way it takes me to process a video, about an hour on a computer. I actually have 3 computers. One I use for one thing. This computer I'm in is for education. And by the way, they're 8-core super fast computers. And because YouTube is so slow to upload a 2 or 3 hour video, the other class of 3. Generally now this semester, today's lecture by the end of tomorrow will be posted in YouTube in case you miss it, or if you want to go back and watch something again to explain to you, get it explained to you again. So usually there's going to be a little lag, but I try and within 24 hours, actually a day and a half after the lecture, have it posted on the YouTube video. And with that, I'm done with the stuff that's not that exciting, but I need to go through the syllabus. So let's get on to the exciting stuff and start going into, it's now time for you to start your journey into my world of chemistry, which is really your world of chemistry. All right, now, where do we begin? Chapter 1, everything I'm going to show you is in Blackboard. You can download. Let me just do one thing before I do that. Let me just clean up some stuff. Once in a while, if I have so many things open, Zoom gets upset and slows down or does strange things. So does my computer. I've got a lot of heavy stuff going on right now. All right, everybody see chapter 1 on your screen? Thumbs up, people. You see it? Thank you. All right, let's start out. What's chemistry? Now, I'll never ask you on a test, but it's good to know what is chemistry. And chemistry is the study of the composition, structure, properties, and reactions of matter. So that's what chemistry is. I should point out, I have one of the fastest mouse wheel fingers this side of the Mississippi and the other side. And a good question is, can you go back to the previous slide in case you're taking notes? If you're not, you can go back and look at this on the video, but I will always back up. So chemistry, we're talking about how things are made up, what's the structure, what are their properties, and what's the reactions of matter. Now, when we talk about chemistry, and by the way, it's time for me to tell you two things I forgot to mention. One, I have a sense of humor and I use it during my class. I use it during my life. And some days I have good humor days, and some days, well, not too good humor. And you and I both have to suffer through that. They didn't warn you about that, I bet, in RateMyProfessor.com. And that's one thing. The other thing, which I almost forgot to tell you, Dr. White can be very subtle in my lectures in class. Now, let me ask, when I switch back and forth, I'm going to be calling Zoom, see if I can get my camera fixed and also this fixed. But everybody see the four main branches of chemistry on the screen? Thank you. All right. The four main branches of chemistry are organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, physical chemistry, analytical chemistry. Let me get this. Let me get this out of my way here. And it's time for me to be subtle. See how subtle Dr. White can be? And all right. Now, what I would like you to know is what are the names of the four branches? Organic, I have at the top here, because that's the best, because I'm an organic chemist. And what's organic chemistry? This I will not ask on a test, is the study of things with carbon and hydrogen atoms. And originally it started out with things that were found, chemicals that were found in things that were alive, plants, animals, and us, humans. And that's why it's called organic chemistry, which is why Madison Avenue stole the word organic for things like organic food, even though all food is organic in reality. Inorganic is the study of things that weren't found in things that were ever alive. And generally, the things like rocks and other things and other inorganic was not my favorite. I'm not fond of inorganic. Physical chemistry deals with things, how atoms are held together, we'll learn about, and things like that. And finally, analytical chemistry is devoted to how to measure things, how to measure what color is something, how to measure how many things are in a mixture. If you watch CSI shows, all the chemists there are really analytical chemists. So on a test, if I were to ask you 2 points, name one of the branches of chemistry, I'd put down organic, it's the best, but you could put down organic chemistry, inorganic, physical, or analytical. But organic is the best. But then again, I'm biased because I'm an organic chemist. In case you were wondering, I got my bachelor's degree a long time ago from Illinois Institute of Technology, chem major, and I got my PhD from Michigan State University. Go green, go white. For those of you who know Michigan State, great time of my life, in East Lansing. And most of the time I've lived in the Chicagoland area. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm coming to you live from COD North, otherwise known as the office in my house. You can see over my shoulder the picture of my favorite movie, Forbidden Planet. We'll talk more about that another day. Oh, I should mention, Avogadro's number is still 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. So we have the four branches of chemistry: organic, inorganic, physical, and analytical, and you should at least know their names. Organic's still the best. Now, when we talk about chemistry, there's chemicals and substances. I won't ask this on a test. And by the way, once in a while, I'll do the following. If I were in a class, I go like this, but since I'm in front of the screen, I'll do this on my web camera. Click. The switch is off. Will this ever be on a test? But there are things I will like to talk about that give you background for things I'll talk about in our class. And this is an example of click, the switch is off on the next slide. See how subtle I can be? And what's a chemical? It's any matter, and I'll describe, and I spelled it wrong. By the way, Dr. White was always the first one down in a spelling bee. Oops, that didn't work. Anyways, first one down in a spelling bee, but math and science, I always won. But anyways, the chemical is any matter used or produced in a chemical process, or otherwise known as chemical reaction, that I'll talk about. And you'll also hear the term, I'll use substance. That's a chemical that consists of one type of matter and always has the same composition and properties wherever it's found. I will never ask these definitions on a test. So you all have each other as witness, I said that. And I can use both interchangeably, and I do. And I like to bring the real world in because I worked in the real world and I live in the real world. Hopefully you do too. And if we look in this bottle, that liquid inside, that's water. It's a chemical. I can also call it a substance. If I go to, which I'm not going to, but if I were to go to the moons of Jupiter, where they supposedly, or is it Saturn, have ice is frozen water, it's going to be H2O, just like this is, 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. I'll teach you about what water is later on this semester. I forgot to mention, on my test and final, for every question, the concept behind that question that you need to know to answer those questions, I'll cover it at least twice, usually more, in lecture. I don't play one of those games where you should have read it on your own. No, if it's going to be on my test, I'll have talked about it at least twice in lecture, which is a reason why you should show up to lecture. Now, when we think about chemistry and chemicals, as I just showed you, there's everything in your life is made up of tiny particles called atoms. I'll teach about atoms later on. I think it's chapter 3. And atoms are bound together to form molecules, and I'll teach you about that. And let's take a look. I already did water, but if you look at beer, pop, champagne, the little bubbles in there are carbon dioxide, which are a chemical or a substance. And the next time you burp, not that you have to do one now, but if you burp, most of the gas you're burping up is carbon dioxide also. Bet you never thought I'd get into burps in this class. You'd be amazed what I'm going to be getting into, because Dr. White likes to bring the real world into our class lectures, and I do. Now, switch is totally off for the next couple of slides. There's something called the scientific method, which last administration, even though I don't want to get into politics, fell out of favor. But now with this new administration in Washington, seems to be back in favor. And as a scientist, that makes me happy. When we have scientific method, you make observations. That means you look at something or measure something that's happening, and we collect data, information. Based on that data or information, you make a hypothesis, and you state the possible interpretation of those observations to data. And based on your hypothesis, I got to reset my jaw, hypothesis, you do experiments to see if your hypothesis is true. Anything I teach you in this class, experiments have been done to prove those are facts. And they're the truth too. Or I should say it the other way around. And once you've done experiments, you come up with what's called a law, scientific law, or we just say a law. And that's a brief statement that synthesizes a fancy word, means to make past observations and also predicts future ones. And here I have a one, let's do a simpler one. Here's water. Enough measurements have been made. If I put this in my freezer, the liquid will become a solid, which you call ice. And whether I do it or you do it, if you take water and put it in a freezer and let it stand long enough, it will become a solid. And that's how science works. Somebody measured, you need a certain temperature. If you're below that temperature, it will become a solid when you put water at that temperature. And that's the beauty of science. It works when you deal with facts. Again, this whole scientific method, I will never, ever ask on a test or a final, but all of chemistry is based on that. All right, time for a special commercial from Dr. White. And let's talk about chemical symbols. This is an important part of chemistry. Now, I'll never ask on tests what's chemical symbols, but they are a 1 or 2 letter abbreviation for the names of the elements. And I'll teach you later on what are the elements. Now, when we do a chemical symbol, the first letter of an element is always capitalized. And if there's only one letter for that chemical symbol of an element, it's capital. If there are 2 letters, the first one is capitalized and the second letter is lowercase. Now let me and I'll teach you later on. All right, thumbs up, people. Everybody see what's called the periodic table on your, thank you. All right, this is a periodic table, my favorite one online, and it has what's known as the different elements, which I'll teach you about. And for each element, there's a symbol, the chemical symbol. Notice for hydrogen, it's H. For carbon, by the way, carbon is Dr. White's favorite element on the periodic table because I'm an organic chemist, and organic chemistry deals mainly with carbon. Its chemical symbol is C. And there are other things on the periodic table I'll teach you later on. Now notice this one has the name. You'll be using a periodic table when you take my test and final that doesn't have the name. Now if we come down here, this one has up to 118 symbols or elements on there. Some of these, like down here, above 100, and even some of these over here, you will never use because I've never used in my life. So what does that mean? Dr. White has lived in the real world, has worked in the real world, has taught in the real world. And what does that mean? The following. I'm not going to ask you to thumbs up, people. Can you see my slide again now? Thank you. Again, I do that because sometimes Zoom tells me you can see it and you really can't. Instead of having you learn all 118, or it used to be 103 elements on the periodic table that you will never use and encounter all those after all the decades. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. After all the decades I worked in the chemical industry, I've never used like francium or nobelium or things like that. But these 37 elements are those that are in our daily life that you should know. When I was in undergrad and grad school, taking notes, if the instructor said something really important, I'd put stars in the left margin of my notebook. And after 3 stars, it was real important, I would also do this. And that meant this would be on the test. And I'm doing it for you. You should know this. What should you know? On a test, if I ask, what's the element with the atomic symbol H? It's helium. Let's go to the high rent district. If I ask, what's the atomic symbol, name of the element with the atomic symbol Au, that's gold. Or if I ask, give the atomic symbol for carbon, you would put down C, 2 points each, or 1 point on a test. Throughout the semester, you will need to know atomic symbols. Now it's time for you to learn that. Now, I've sort of been amiss in this. Here's Avogadro's number, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Now, if you close your eyes, I bet many of you can still see it. If I were to get rid of it, how many of you, if you close your eyes, by the way, it's safe, Dr. White's here. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, it should be safe. If you close your eyes, can you see 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd? That some of you did. If I did it more, and what that means is, how do you memorize things? I found years ago, I forgot how I did, and many students, it's worked for them. If you write something down and say it 5 times on a piece of paper and say it out loud, if you're in the library, obviously now you may not be, but a place where it's supposed to be quiet, do it mentally in your head, you will memorize something. I have cut down the memorization in this class. I'll talk more about it when we get into formulas, but you still have to memorize the chemical symbols on that list. How do you do that? Let me show you one. Everybody see my whiteboard with 6.02 on there? Thank you. Oh, I've got some real great thumbs up, people. I appreciate it. So if I were asked, you've got to memorize this, carbon. How do you do that? Put down C, write down carbon, and say it out loud. C, carbon. Do it again. C, carbon. And for some reason, when you write it and say it and look at it, visual auditory, C, carbon, and you do it 5 more times, or 5 total, and then another day do it once or twice more, you will have that burned into your brain. It works. You will not learn chemistry a day or 2 before a test. Trust me, I've seen students who've tried and the results aren't pretty. If you want to do well, practice right now. You should start doing that this week and this weekend. Start practicing. And I've only asked you to learn 37. See what a nice person I am? Thank you. You're welcome. Like I said, Dr. White uses humor, and sometimes it's not always the best. So learn these 37. These are listed in the chapter 1 lectures on Blackboard, even though it says summer 2020. I'm not going to waste an hour changing the file name. I reuse my slides because they're good. Oh no, guess what? We have finished chapter 1. And the most important things you should know from chapter 1, this is the only chapter I don't have a problem set. What are the 4 branches of chemistry? Name one of them. The best one is organic chemistry, but I'm biased. I'm an organic chemist. There's analytical, physical, and also inorganic. I don't like inorganic that much. Most organic chemists don't. So you know what time it is? No, we're not done yet. It's time for a new chapter. I had one class I taught in COD, it was 1105. It's 1 semester general chemistry, and for non-health majors mainly. And whenever I'd say, you know what time it is, they'd all close their notebooks. No, it's not time to leave. And they're ready to get up and leave. Dr. White doesn't end early. I give you my money's worth. It's time for chapter 2. Which I have to go open. But before I move on, quick thing, any questions about chapter 1 so far? See, chemistry isn't that bad. Hopefully none of you are in pain yet and never will be in my class. All right, let's move on to chapter 2. Remember, everything I put on the screen, my lecture slides are available to you in Blackboard, and you can download them or look at them. I have them both in Word and PDF, so that means you can even read them on your cell phone. Now, chapter 2, and let me check with my thumbs up, people. Everybody see chapter 2 on your screen? Thank you. Chapter 2 deals with measurements and problem solving, really measurements. And I'm going to turn the switch, click. Will this be on test to the off position? But this is good background information about other things that will be on the test. Now in chemistry, we make measurements, and measurements are determining dimensions, capacity, or quantity, or extent of something. Having worked in the chemical industry, and I've worked what my job was, I was in charge of new product and process development, and also I was a problem solver. If our plants had problems, I'd go there. If our customers had problems, I'd go there. I got to see a lot of the United States and the world. Chemistry has been good to Dr. White, and I've been good to chemistry. And companies I dealt with are like cosmetic and personal care companies. And a certain thing that's important to them, like Neutrogena I've dealt with, is what's the color of something? That's a measurement. This has a color. And it's called the Apha scale, which I won't teach in here, but it's just something you can measure. Totally pure water has Apha 0. I would say this is about 100. And there are different scales. If you go to a gas station, when you go put gas in your car, the meter has a readout that shows you how much gasoline you're putting in there. That's a measurement. If you look at the octane number, that's a measurement of a certain property of gasoline. By the way, I worked for one company that sold chemicals to the petroleum industry. And it's time for a public service announcement from Dr. White. What's the best gasoline? Well, having worked with all of them, they all agree, and this is going back many years, Shell is the best. And next, Mobil is almost as good. Marathon, which I don't know who they get it from, Shell or Mobil, the Marathon is quite good too. Now, the worst gas is BP, which also used to be known as Standard. It's been the worst gas since back in the 1980s and before. And if you don't believe me, go back and look on the internet. About 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, a refinery for BP in northern Indiana near Gary made some gasoline that was so bad that in the northern Indiana area and that part of Illinois, Costco is good too. I'm not sure who makes them, but I'm a Costco member. I should admit that. I haven't had any problem with that. But that gasoline destroyed the car engines, destroyed them, about 3,000 cars in Indiana, Illinois, and BP had to pay to have them replaced. That's bad gas. So I'd stay away from BP. Now, a couple of things. If you look at a gas pump, I won't really teach you the chemicals involved in this class, it's really organic chemistry. You see different octane numbers, and that tells you certain quality of gas that back when they first came out with cars, that's when that was developed. Unless you have a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Porsche, Lamborghini or Ferrari, and Dr. White would like to get one someday, but I don't. I've been in a Lamborghini and a Porsche, but I don't own one. You need the high octane. I have an Explorer. I've had Explorers for years. You can get by with the regular gas. Now, when you have to keep my engines going good, and I've been doing this for years, and was recommended to me by people in the petroleum industry, and I'll pass along again as a public service announcement, about every 2 or 3 months, I'll let my gas go down to a quarter. Usually I fill up at a half. That's just my own personal thing. But I let it go down to a half, a quarter. Then I fill it up all the way with the highest premium gas. I do that about 3 or 4 times a year. That's because the higher premium gas has better additives that help clean out your engine. Now, you don't have to do it every time you fill up gas, or if you don't have a car, your friends or parents do. But if you do it a couple times a year like that, it helps keep your engine run better. Enough for the public service announcement. I see a question. Hold on. I already answered that. Costco I've used. They're farther away from my house. I have a Shell and something. Not today, but Thursday and Friday, I'll show you a good website, chicagogasprices.com, that allow you to compare gas prices in the area. And I teach when I'm face-to-face in Glen Ellen. I live in Schaumburg. I also teach in Elgin. Sometimes there's like a 20-cent per gallon difference between different area gas stations. Dr. White likes to save money, so I go to the lowest price. But I like Shell and Mobil mainly. So those are some sort of measurements that chemists make, or I should say, chemists make many measurements, again, switches still off, such as mass, volume, length, time, temperature, pressure, concentration, how much of something is in there. When you buy alcohol, don't tell anybody, but Dr. White loves vodka. No, I'm not an alcoholic, and Canadian Club, the best vodka, Grey Goose, and also Absolute is good. But the Costco French vodka is about that close to Grey Goose and Absolute. And I won't tell you about some fun times I've had in Amsterdam and The Hague. I worked for 2 Dutch companies. So back in the 80s and 90s, I would go to Europe at least 4 or 5 times a year, if not more often. And I'd spend 2 to 4 weeks at a time there. And by the way, Amsterdam is probably the funnest city in the world. And also in consulting, I've been in Guadalajara. That's a wild place too. So we make many different measurements. Octane number is one. I'll talk about stuff that even involves your blood, pH, later in the semester. Now, when we make a measurement, we'll a lot of times get a number. An important thing that we will use this semester is called scientific notation. It's a system, and I'll never ask on a test, what's the definition of scientific notation? but it's a system in which an ordinary decimal number is expressed in a number of a product of a number between 1 and 10, never less than 1, never 10 or greater, times 10 raised to the power. And this is what it looks like. Thumbs up, people. Everybody see my whiteboard? Thank you. You get tired of hearing me say that, but let's look at a scientific notation of, oh, look, Avogadro's number. And this is a very large number, huge. And what does this mean right here? That's 10 to the power. If I have 10 to the 2, that is equal to 10 times 10, which is equal to 100. So if I had 1.5 times 10 squared, by the way, important thing. Sometimes I have good tablet writing days. You know how you have good hair days and bad hair days, and sometimes not so good. If you can't read something I write on the screen or on my tablet, ask, what the heck is that? Remember, there's no such thing as dumb question in my class. I'm looking at the clock. Boy, time flies when you're having fun with chemistry, which eventually we'll get into. So what this really means is 1.5 times 100, which would be 150. So scientific notation, now instead of 2, if I had 1,000, that'd be a longer number with more zeros. It's a way of writing a number in a shorthand, and that's scientific notation. Now, scientific notation can be large or small. Let's look at how do you convert a decimal number into scientific notation. And hopefully you all see converting on your screen. I think so. If not, somebody let me know. Turn off your mic and say, I can't see it. But anyways, the decimal point in the number, even if there isn't one, assume there is one, is moved to the position to the right of the first number. Hopefully you all know your right from your left hands. If not, see me in my office hours. I'm just being facetious now. Now, the exponent for the exponential term, and remember, is some number times 10 to the x. X, this is x, is equal to the number of places the decimal point has been moved. Again, I'll never ask you this on a test, but you should know how to do this, and that I can ask on a test. And the exponent is positive if the number is greater than 10. The exponent is negative if the number is less than 10. Now, I don't use this, but it's 0 if the number is 1 through 10, and 10 to the 0 equals the number 1. But this I've never used, I don't think, on a test. But these things you should know. So let's practice it. All right, everybody see my whiteboard now again? Thank you. So I just had trouble switching over. Let's look at this number. Right now, abbreviate on a test I wouldn't. So sometime in the future, if I have you download a test to take, 2 points each, write the following in scientific notation. How do you do that? Well, you got to move the decimal point. If there were a decimal point, it would be right there to the right of the first integer. And let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when the number is greater than 10 and there's no decimal, remember I had to write it in, you drop zeros. This is 1.26. Now, how many times did I move it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Therefore, it's 10 to the 4th. And that's how you do scientific notation. Let's do another one. I'll do this one. By the way, Dr. White shares. I let you have some of the fun too. I'm not going to hog it all to myself. How would you write this number in scientific notation? Well, you have to move the decimal point to the right of the first non-zero integer, which in this case is 4. So if I had a decimal, it'd be there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I moved it 7 times. Oh, I should point out, I write my 7 like that. When I was in high school, I had a German teacher from Germany who wrote a 7 like that. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I still think it is. And I've been writing my 7s like this ever since, which is the European way of doing that. So all zeros are dropped. This would be 4.756 times 10. How many times did I move it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see someone with a question. I bet you already did this, but yep. And that's how you do it. All right, it's time for Dr. White to share. Write that in scientific notation. I'll give you 18.76 seconds. Go. Now, normally in class, I'd be able to look around, see when students are done. I'd say, when you're done, look up and smile. But since maybe not all of you have your web camera on, I can't see all 40 plus of you at the same time. Give me a thumbs up. All right, looks like everybody's done. And how do you do it? Let's see if you did it right. There were decimal be right here, and I move it to the right of the first non-zero number, 1, 2, 3. So I moved it 3 times. So how do you write that? Zeros at the end without a decimal. Remember, I wrote that in. You drop, said 3.9. Then remember, scientific notation is some number times 10 to the x. X is the number of times I moved it. And that's how you did it. See, chemistry isn't that hard. All right, let's look at, let's do another one. Why don't you try this one? Write this in scientific notation. See, a lot of you have already gotten ahead of me, which is a good thing. Thank you for your participation. Let's find out, how do you do this? There are a decimal point. I want to move it to the right of the first non-zero number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I moved it 7 times. Zeros at the end with no decimal. Remember, I put that down. You drop. So that'd be 2.17 times what's X? How many times did I move it? 7. Oh, that looks ugly as heck. That looks better. All right, let's look at a number that's less than 1. How do you do this? This number is less than 1. By the way, Dr. White has a habit of putting always a 0 to the right, to the left of a decimal point. You don't have to do it, but I do. Good habits I don't break. And how do you do this? First of all, let me check one thing. All right. You move the decimal point to the right of the first non-zero number. Here's zeros. So I'm going to move this 1, 2, 3 right there. Zeros in the front, you drop. Whoever has a question, I'll get to you in a second. 4.6. Now, this number is less than 1. Oh, by the way, if you can't read my handwriting ever, ask, what the heck did you write? This is the symbol less than 1. X is so we have 10 to the minus 10 to the X. I moved it 1, 2, 3 times. So this would be -3. And that's how you do it. One of the things when I'm in share, I can't use my keyboard to get to chat. So I see people are already answering it. Good. Thank you for participating. All right. Let me do one more. And this is important. Notice this new number is less than 1. You want to move the decimal point to the right of the first non-zero number. So I move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, zeros in the front, you drop. Now, 0 at the end with a decimal point, you do not drop. So this would be 3.60. I moved it 5 times. The number is negative because it's less than 1 times 10 to the -5. And that's how you do numbers less than 1. And let me let you have one. And why don't you try this one? Let me make the decimal point obvious. And you have fun doing it. By the way, I ask a lot of rhetorical questions. If you want to answer on chat, feel free to. If you don't feel free to. All right. If you're done, smile, or if you don't have a camera on, give a thumbs up. Oh, I see a lot of smiling faces out there. Dr. White's happy and hokey too at times. And I'm going to ask a personal thing. Justin, what's the name of your dog? By the way,
dog's name is Buddy.
Hi, buddy. I have never had dogs. I had to travel a lot when I was in industry, but my sister's always had dogs. At one time she had 5 sheepdogs. Now she has border collies. All right. So I told you learn a lot about me. Let's do this in scientific notation. Move this decimal to the right of the first non-zero number. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that'll be 4.18813. X is negative 10 to the x. I move that 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and that would be minus 4. Let's do one more. Here's one for you. Can everybody see that, or do I need to write it larger? If I ever write something too small, let me know. Oop, I'm going a little over. I apologize. Let's do this real quick. I was having so much fun with scientific notate. No, there are better things in chemistry. All right, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We move this 6 times. 0 at the end with a decimal, which there is kept. X is minus 6, and that's how you do it. Again, I apologize for going over. One important thing you said, you learn a lot about me. All my grandparents came from Russia. I'm Jewish, and I don't know how many of you know Yiddish. It's a mixture of German and Hebrew. I know Yiddish, and I'm going to end every class with everybody be safe, gehen gesund. Gehen gesund is something you say when you're saying goodbye to someone, and it means literally be healthy. But you say that when you care about people. So I'm going to say, I'll see you on Wednesday. Please log in a minute or two early to Zoom. Gehen gesund. I'll be posting this sometime tomorrow, today's lecture. Hopefully you all had a good time. By the way, I stole that from Granny of Beverly Hillbillies. Bye. Gehen gesund. I'll see you on Wednesday. And hopefully you had a good time. I'll stick around a couple minutes if anybody has any questions. Other than that, you can log off. Bye.